Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to a VOD review of this Kaisa, and we're also going to be going to the Jinx game as well. This guy plays Jinx and Kaisa, and he's an ADC player, and we're going to talk about some few things about Kaisa, and also we're going to talk about your mana usage, and we're going to talk about positioning. In this game, mostly we're going to talk about the positioning and also Kaisa and the way that you built her. So, you built Kaisa as the W maxing Kaisa. So, with the reason why I say that is because you went, if we look into your match history, you went Mirror Mana, then you went into the Luden's Companion to Rabadon's. This is the W max build, and with this build, there's some things that I want to say about it, and just about ADC. So ADC is obviously, it means attack damage carry. Obviously, you can have an APC as well with ability power carry. But what an ADC is a consistent damaging champion that no matter what will pump out some damage. That's like the gist of it. They need to be consistent in their damage. This build that you're going for, yes, it's fun. Yes, it works sometimes, but it isn't consistent, and that's the problem. Some games will be good, some games will be bad. But also with this build, you're not actually doing it the best that it could have been. First of all, you're going lethal tempo with this build. This build does not need lethal tempo. You're not doing attack speed. You're not doing attacks. You're not doing like fast, quick attacks. You're mostly sniping people with your W. That is what this build is meant to do. You snipe people with your W. And then you also max Q. I'm not really too sure on if you're supposed to max Q, but I'm pretty sure you're still supposed to max W. But all in all, what you're doing with this build isn't correct, because you don't want to be going lethal tempo. I think press the attack would probably be better, but also maybe Dark Harvest would probably be better as well. But just press lethal tempo is all about gaining more attack speed and gaining more damage as you start autoing more. But if you're not doing those autos, you're not autoing fast, it doesn't matter. It's all about your W and how much damage your W does and your passive. That's like kind of what this whole build is revolved around. Yes, it can be fun, but it's not going to be consistent. And I think what you should do is switch to what you were doing before, which was building a more consistent build, like, here, let's go to another one, this one. Kraken Slayer to Ginsu's, to Gnasher's Tooth. And that is what she should be building. This is her most consistent damaging build, and yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. Kaisa is a pretty difficult champion to play. You can still play her. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but she is pretty difficult. But once you get the hang of her, I feel like you'll have an amazing time. She's one of those hyper carries like Vayne and Zeri, where she can be seen out of meta, but she still has a foot in the door. She still has the ability to be a overwhelmingly good character if put into the right hands. But we're going to talk about a little bit with your positioning. There was a key moment where the lane was basically over for this Sivir, and you did a really good job of doing level 2. You did a level 2 advantage. I don't know if it was really meant to do it, but it looked like you kind of did. Your Zyra did a very good job. I feel like your Zyra was playing extremely well, but you kind of didn't help her in some cases. So we're gonna talk about that. Or actually, we're gonna talk about this first. There is actually this moment where, so this is where you got a kill, and after you got this kill, you pushed the wave and then you backed. And then this is what the wave state is left like. Obviously, Sivir's pushing this into you. I don't think you've learned any wave management yet. You probably haven't. And I just want to talk about a little fun or a little good thing that you can do when you see something like this happening to you. As you can see, Sivir and Braum are both really low, and Sivir also does not have mana. They obviously want to push this wave and back. But what we can do is keep the wave here frozen. And that's what we want to do. If we keep the wave frozen here and then play position more aggressively, like right over here, this means that either A, they will back off and go for a back, meaning they lose all the minions, or B, they don't back off and then they both die for this, which is extremely bad for them. So this is what you do, and this is not a good. This is not what you should do. So this is don't start pushing this wave anymore. Sivir needs to back here. Obviously, she needs to back here. Okay, so why don't we just leave the lane right here, smack down next to your tower? That means she has to step up so far forward that you guys can chase her down. This is why freezing is so strong. Is because Sivir needs, after she kills this minion, Sivir needs to come up here just to get these three. And guess what? You have such good positioning that you guys can just kill her here. You chose to push the wave into her, and that makes it so she can kind of CS freely. Not exactly CS freely, but it gives her more space to run away, rather than giving her less space, where if you just let the wave push into you, it would have been perfectly fine. Because look, like, these 3 minions are going to die, but if you just leave these 3 minions here, it's going to be frozen, and they need to step up in order to CS. And if they back, they're going to lose the next wave. So it's going to be extremely bad for them, no matter what outcome comes here. You push it in, that's what happens. You're going to push it in, and now it's going to be back to neutral. Now, this is where we're going to talk a little bit about positioning, and a little bit about lane prio. So I've talked a bit about lane prio in my videos and how people get it. So number one of lane prio is if you have a ranged match, like ranged versus ranged, it's always be able to fight. You can fight for it. So like if it's a range free range, lane prio can be fought over. If it's a melee versus range, melee should always gain lane prio because they have the range advantage. That is one of the advantages that you can have. Or you can have a disadvantage by being a melee. There are other things that make you be able to have lane prio. And since this is one moment where we have one, you and Zyra are extremely healthy. And what does that mean? You have more health to sacrifice to get these people out. We want them out of this lane. We want to punish them for stepping up, because they shouldn't be here. They should be back as possible, because if they are not, both of you can kill them. And this isn't exactly the moment where you could have killed her, but here is where you could have. You're playing way too safe here now. You do not need to be this far back. If we just stand right here, Sivir and Braum won't be able to kill you. They won't. You have a Zyra for support. If you just stand here, if they don't respect you standing right here and they try to fight you, you're both gonna kill them. They're both gonna die. This is you're full HP, they're half HP. They don't have items, you have items. You have so many advantages here because you have 2 longswords. She doesn't have a longsword. And this is just winning. This is just winning for you. You have so much. The only thing that's not like winning for you is like you don't have level advantage on her, but your Zyra does. But anyways, if you just stand right here, if they don't respect you here, you get a kill. And if they do respect you, guess what? They lose minions very slowly, and they don't get to CS. You know, like it's a win-win situation here. You know, if it doesn't matter what they do. You're put into a position where you can control them basically because you have control of the wave. But here is the place where Zyra does something extremely smart, and she is the one that became the aggressor. But you need to follow her here. Zyra gets this off. Obviously, you probably could have killed her here. She flashed. Yes, she flashed. Cool. But you still could have killed her. I'm just going to say that you still could have killed her here. And here's why. It's the same reason on what I was talking about. It is your positioning on how defensive you're being here. You don't need to be this defensive anymore. If you see Zyra stepping up like this, look how far away you're from your Zyra and from them. You won't be able to follow up on her. But if you just stood right here, right where I was saying before, and right next to the minions, these two are dead. they're both dead here. Or at least one of them is dead here. And that's all you have to do. All you have to do is step up. If you have HP advantage and you have some type of stun or, you know, root, this will be a double kill here. Because if they do respect you, yes, they back off and they lose some minions. But if they don't respect you, guess what? You get a free kill. But you're just playing way too, you're playing way too passive here. Play too defensively. You need to start playing more aggressively when it comes down to having some type of advantage. You have an advantage here. Use that advantage. You see how far away you are from Sivir when Zyra gets this nice root on her? If you were just an itty bitty closer, there you don't have to use your E and you probably QW her and she's just dead. She's just dead here. She might even use flash as well and still die. That is the one thing that was kind of what I saw in your laning phase. Also there was one more thing, was playing passively. So you do know how to play aggressively, but you don't know when you can play aggressively. And that's the same thing with defensively. You don't know when to play defensively. And this happens a little bit later when you still have this advantage. You have this advantage where you still have an item up on her and you do something that just makes it really, really bad for you. So pushing the wave is fine. This is where we need to play defensively. And here's why. So yes, you are ahead of the Sivir. You have a coffee. I mean, I guess you're still ahead, but honestly, I don't like coffee. I just don't like your build because your damage is so inconsistent, and I feel like this is why you lost the game. I feel like really the reason why you lost this game is your damage is not consistent. If you had the items of Kraken Slayer, you would be stomping. You would be stomping here. But you just don't. You just don't have the damage. This is literally 20 damage. This is 10. And this is 1,100 gold. This is 350. You spent 1,400 gold for 30 attack damage. She spent 875 gold for 25. She is overall still behind from you, technically with gold-wise. But it doesn't matter. Her stats are better. Or not. Her stats are pretty much even with you because of what you're buying. But let's move on to talking about why this is a problem. So they're pushing in the wave, and then your Zyra died earlier. But there's this thing that you do. You're playing super aggressive here. And the problem I have with that is that now you are not allowed to play the game anymore. And you will see that this is what happens to you. You actually cannot play the game here anymore. You're stuck being super scared and super passive because you're half HP, and all they gotta do is wait for you to step up, and if they catch you, you're dead. And now you're half HP, you can't do anything, you can't fight, Sivir's gonna win this fight if you ever do, and now this is terrible for you. But you can see how, in this point in the game, it feels like you can't do anything here, right? It feels like it's so hard to play because you're so low on HP, and you can't fight, and no matter what, this Sivir will always win this fight, because look, and that's all it takes. All it takes is one HP advantage, and it's super hard to play the game now. It's just super hard. So how do we stop this from happening? How do we be able to get our lane prio back? And it's super easy. So we know that this is a 1v2, and when it comes down to playing anywhere, or when it comes down to anything in a fight, or getting pressure or adding pressure, if someone has numbers advantage, they will most likely win because there is 2 against 1. Like, come on, it's just like, what's better, 2 people or 1 person? Obviously there are cases where yes, the 1 person can definitely win, where maybe they're low, or they have more items, or they're fed. Like, that makes it so like this one guy can actually win. But overall, in this situation, you will never win this 2v1. You will never win this 2v1. And getting that extra bit of damage is not, it's useless. You know, it's actually just useless. So what do we got to do here? What do we got to do? All we got to do is just sit back. Sit back, relax. Guess what? This wave is pushing towards you. You might lose a 1, you might lose 2, but like, think about this. If you don't lose your HP here, you get to play the game. You get to play lane and not be scared because you're low on HP. You get to play the game really well. But now, since you're going to lose all this HP, you're not going to be able to play as well because you just have to play so much more passively. And all we got to do is just wait. Just wait until your support's back in the lane. Wait until they push the wave in. Just play defensively. This is exactly where you lose all your HP. You're eating into this guy. You lose like 25% of your HP from the Sivir Q, the Braum, whatever, and then the Ignite gets rid of your, like, now you're half HP. Now you're half HP, and this feels so terrible now. It feels so much more terrible in order to play. You can't do anything. You have to play passively now because you're just that low on HP. I don't know what the Zyra's doing. The Zyra, I guess, is waiting for the wave to push in, but she should be helping you, at least adding some pressure, but we're not going to talk about that. Yeah, that's kind of what I saw from this game. Just, so basically, like, number one, honestly, don't build like this. I would say just don't build like this. This build is, yes, it's fun. Yes, sometimes you can do some quite a bit of damage, but it's just not consistent. It's so inconsistent on your damage. Your W and your Q matter so much with this build, and if you just miss your W, it feels so unplayable because you just don't have the attack speed to do anything. And you don't have the damage. You just don't have the damage because your attacks don't do any damage. It's only your W and your Q for the most part. So I would say just build the more consistent build. Go with the more consistent build of going Kraken, of going Berserkers, Ginsus, Nashers. This is just so much more consistent and you do so much more damage consistently. So that's all I got to say about that. And learn where you can play aggressive and learn where you can play passive, or when you should learn, when you should do those things. When should you play aggressively? When should you play passively? And let's just talk about this. It's just like it's both sides of the coin when it comes down to it. So when we play aggro and when we play passive. So aggro, we can play aggro when we have numbers advantage. We can play aggro when we have range advantage. We can play aggro if we have health advantage. We can play aggro when we have mana advantage. We can play aggro when we have level advantage. These are all the points where you can play aggro. If you have more people near you, numbers advantage. If you have more range than them, you have range advantage, meaning you can poke them out of lane better. If you have health or mana advantage, if you have more health than the enemy, you are able to trade more health because you have more health. And they have to play more passively because if they trade more health, they will get very close to dying and they will be in kill range, which is really bad for them. And then obviously level advantage. They're level 2, 3, 6 advantage. Try to get those spikes. Try to understand where you hit those. And levels are just overall a big stat boost for every champion. If you have a level over a champion, you basically have, we'll say, you basically have like 300 gold worth of stats on top of them. But then it's, all this is a two-sided coin. If any of this is happening to you, they have numbers advantage, if they have health advantage, if they have mana advantage, like, if they just have these advantages, they can do this to you. So that means we should do the opposite, play passive. So that's all it is. Look at all the things that makes you strong or makes you have the ability to play aggro, and then flip the coin. If this is happening to you, play more passively. And yeah, that's what I have to say about that. And now we're going to talk a little bit about your Jinx game, because there's two things that I want to talk about in that Jinx game. One is an early game thing, and one is a late game thing. There's one thing that Jinx is really good at, which is poking out your laner. But she has a little bit of a problem, if you didn't know, with her mana. And wow, you do not know how to conserve your mana. You use your rockets so often that you're always out of mana. It even happened in the Kai'Sa game. Like, it even happened in the Kai'Sa game where you're losing all this mana, you're using so many abilities, you're losing all your mana, and now you're a sitting duck. You know, you can't fight anymore. And this is what happens to you. You're like level 3 and you're out of mana and you can't do anything. Well, let's just watch. We're gonna watch this. We're gonna see how often you use your rockets and how fast you lose all of your mana. It is extremely fast. You're already using some rockets. All right, you're using rockets. You're using rockets. You are 2 minutes into the game. 2 minutes into the game. You already are half mana. That is insane how much mana you're using right now. We need to conserve our mana. It is what makes our champions strong. If we don't have mana and they have mana, they have a whole kit they can use on us. And we don't have anything. We're left with autos. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to put ourselves in sour spots because we want to get a little bit of extra damage or get some wave push or attack minions from far away. This is why you're having a trouble in this game. You had trouble in this game because you're just always out of mana. Always out of mana. Look at this. You're out of mana. It's 3 minutes into the game and you're out of mana already. So I want you to understand when is a good time to use your mana and when is a good time to conserve your mana. And mostly it comes down to your rocket usage. You use your rockets way too often, and you use your rockets in spots where you shouldn't use your rockets. And I'm going to tell you when you should use your rockets. In the early game, don't use your rockets on the minions. Obviously, you can use your rockets right here. This is a perfect time to use your rockets because you can kill all 3 minions at the same time. This is perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine. Yes, we switch to our guns now. Don't switch to our rockets. We're using our rockets on minions we don't need to use our rockets on. It's not even damaging the Sivir. It's not doing anything. All it's doing is, yes, giving us lane prio. But this is the thing, man. We're already down 60 mana. We're down now, we're losing 20 mana per rocket. You can fire only 13 rockets until you're out of mana. So let us conserve it as much as possible so we can use it in a fight. This is fine. Using rockets on the Galio is perfect. I love that you're using your rockets. This is perfect. But switch to guns more often when we are, again, we're attacking the minions with our rockets. We're using all our mana here. Again, we're using our mana. Stop using our mana here. This is fine. So the only place we should ever be using our rockets in the early game is for that first wave for those 3 minions you can use your rockets for. But then this is the only spot you should use your rockets for. Only for poking. It should only be used for poking. Use your rockets for poking. Don't use it for any other reason. Let us conserve our mana as much as possible. So we can at least have enough mana to go for a fight. And if we don't want to go for a fight, have enough mana to push the wave in so we can back. Because if we don't have mana, we are a useless minion. We're basically a minion at this point. We only have autos left. So conserve your mana. Use your mana wisely. I hate that your Thresh is not doing anything here. That sucks for you. Make sure we conserve our mana. Conserve our mana, conserve our mana, conserve our mana. And if we don't conserve our mana, make sure that we're pushing the wave in. Make sure we have enough mana to push the wave in, and then we can back so we can get our mana back. That is the only reason you should be using your rockets on the minions, is if you want to push the wave in and you want to back. Because if you're out of mana, you become useless. Poking with your W is fine, and yes, poking with your Q is totally fine. But then you start using your rocket. You literally used 5 to 6 rockets, which is 20 mana per rocket. Used 6 rockets. That is what? 120 mana. That is almost half of your mana pool. And now you can't do anything. But if you just had a little bit more mana, just a little bit more mana, I think this Galio could die here. It's a possibility that you could probably kill him. But you're just out of mana. This Thresh is also being very passive, which is very annoying to me. But this happens so often to you every time you go into game. But now we're at a point where we just need to push this wave. Push this wave. Push it. Push it. Push it. We need our mana back. We need to go back. because we don't have mana. We can't do anything here. Perfect. Now we back. But then it happens again. It happens again and again and again. Look at this. We're using our rockets. Why are we using our rockets? It's no point to using our rockets on the minions. We've already lost 70 mana. And now we're using our chain chops. Look at this. We're half mana. We just got back into lane and we're half mana. And what did we take with half our mana? We took we used half of our mana for 40% of HP. Not even, like 30% of this guy's HP. Is that really worth it? I say it's not. I really don't like how much mana you're using. It's making your game so much harder. Look, you're still using mana. Still using mana. Still using mana. You are already out of mana. Already out of mana in lane, basically. And now you can't fight for things. Because you just don't have, like, as I said, you can't play aggro anymore because you're out of mana. If you had mana, you can actually still play the game, but now you can't. Because Sivir is able to use her whole kit, you're not allowed to. You can't even use chain chops anymore. You have so little mana that you can't even use chain chops anymore. So, learn to conserve your mana on Jinx. Don't use your rockets on the wave. Use your rockets for only poking the enemy. And you should only even be firing 1 or 2 rockets at the enemy. Obviously, try to use your rockets on them, but make sure you conserve it. Because if you don't, you're just going to be useless after a while, you know? Because you just don't have the mana anymore. So this is what's happening. You have no mana again. Literally no mana again. And now the game's unplayable again. And you need to push this wave. Because you need to have mana. But you just don't have anything. You can't use any of your abilities. This Thresh is also playing so passive, which is so annoying. But that's the one thing that I want to talk about with Jinx. Is your mana consumption. That is a big issue that you have in your early game. In the later parts of the game, you can start using your rockets a lot more because your mana keeps coming up every time you level. But in the early game, you really need to learn how to conserve it. If you don't conserve it, then you're just going to be useless in lane because you just can't play. You literally can't play. Every champion revolves. It might have energy, they might have mana, or they might not have anything. When it comes down to it, you need to conserve it. You need to conserve your mana, okay? And then we're going to talk about one more thing. And that comes down to when should you use rockets, when should you use your minigun. And there are points where you're using your rockets when you don't need to. You shouldn't be. And here's one of them. So the reason why your rockets are so strong is because it is splash damage for anyone that is near the target that you're shooting. And also it does extra damage because it's a rocket and it costs mana. So it does some extra damage. As you can see, it does 279. It does 20 more damage. That's like basically it. You deal 20 more damage because you have rockets. And also it's splash damage now. That's what makes her rockets really strong. It's her splash damage. But it has downsides. And also you get range, obviously. But it has downsides. The downsides is that it costs mana, and you have 10% less attack speed. That's actually, like, pretty bad. Because with single target damage, you actually have less damage when you use your rockets. Your minigun is really good at single target damage because it has a passive. While using the minigun, Jinx stacks attacks grants attack speed for 2.5 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, with a total of 130% bonus attack speed, basically. So you get so much more attack speed when you're sitting on your minigun when you're attacking a single target. So the only reason you should ever be using your rockets is if you're in a team fight and you're targeting multiple people. But this is a point where we don't need to be doing that. We can start doing it. Yes, the start of using our rockets here is okay. But as soon as it gets to this point, just switch. Switch off your rockets. Go to your minigun. Your minigun is so much stronger here. You do switch to it at the end, But it's just I'm just gonna say it's way stronger if you just were minigun at the start. It would be way stronger. You deal way more damage if you were just at minigun at the start. I don't think there was anything else. Oh yeah, no, there was one more thing. You need to learn when you should be playing safe and when is a bad time. When is a bad time to position. Level 97. So you are pretty new to the game. I think, at least. I'm hoping that you're pretty new to the game. It seems like you are. But you're pretty new to the game. So you probably don't know how champions work and how everything works. But I'm just going to talk about a champion that is in this game that probably is going to make it a lot harder to climb out of the early ranks because people don't know how to play against it. And that is Nocturne. So what's so special about Nocturne is that his ult is super, super, super strong. And people don't know how it works. We can call it a teleport, basically, or a really long-range dash. Nocturne darkens the map, reducing the sights of all the enemy champions and removing their vision, so you can't see your teammates unless they're near you. And when he casts this ability, he launches towards a target. And if we just look, I wonder if it will show me the range if Nocturne is live. The range is like, we'll say it's like about this big. It's like a pretty, well, it's more like this. His range on where he can ult is really, really big. He even gets bigger as he levels up the ability. It has a scaling range, so it's like kind of small at the beginning, but this makes it so he can be at 2 places at once, and he has basically a TP. But you should be scared of this, and you should realize that this guy can be on you at any point in time in the game, and if you don't play safe, the game is over. And that is exactly what happens here. You don't play safe, and the game is now over. So when we're in this like late game, very, very late game, in like a very, very late game, we need to learn that we need to play a lot more passively, and how to, and where do we cut off on where we are. So I'm gonna first show you on why you lose the game. This is why you lose the game. This is exactly why you lose the game. Now you're dead. And guess what? It's a 4v5. You just basically lose the game here. Yep, you just lose the game. So why are we here in the first place? Like, that's the first question, is like, why are we here in the first place? Yes, okay, we want to push the wave into their tower. That is always good. We want to push the wave into their tower. That's pretty good. But it also comes with downsides. If we're pushed up so far, this makes the players around them spot you, and they'll all just collapse on you. You become a collapsible person. It's very easy for the enemy team to collapse on you. So playing this aggressively in the late game is what can cause you to really lose. Because we just don't need to be here. We don't need to be here. Because think about this. This wave is getting pushed into their tower. Obviously someone's going to come match us. And if they do, they're going to take the wave. Now that the wave's gone, what? Are we going to take this tower? Are we actually going to take this tower here? Is that what's going to happen? No, we're not going to take this tower. This tower will never be able to be taken. We can't take this. It's not possible. So this aggression is not good. It's not good at all. We do not need to be here. So I think a good thing that you should think about is when we're this late into the game and no objectives are up. If no objectives are up, no Baron, no Dragon, no Otacon, no nothing. If nothing is up, I want you to not pass the middle part of the lane. Don't pass this. You can push the wave here, and then you stop. And then what do? You can either sit and wait here, or you can go for wards around the jungle, or you can stay with your team. But once you pass this mark, you become a person that these people can just come kill. Because guess what? They have less time to get to you compared to your team. Obviously, you have a Garen here, but like, just think about this. This is going to take a lot longer for Yi and for this Kayle to support you. So then they're just going to collapse on you and you just die. So whenever we're at a very late stage in the game and there's no objectives up, just stay, don't pass this. And it doesn't even matter. If there are objectives up, don't pass this line unless you know where the enemy team is. Unless you know that you can add pressure. And unless your team is with you. This is only 2 people. There's 2 people here. And we don't know where any of them are. We actually don't know where any of them are. And they could just all be sitting here waiting for us. And if they're waiting for us, you guys both die and then you lose the game. So play safe here. We don't need to lose a game like this. Just stay safe, don't pass the middle mark, and eventually all your team, or your whole team, will start marching towards you, and then we can fight. This is a prime time to fight because now we're at a 5v5 and this will be easy for us. Yeah, that's kind of all I got. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this VOD review for you. If you have any further questions, you can obviously Discord message me, and if you want to do another one of this, and if you want an in-person one, we can do in-person one, I don't mind. But thank you so much, and hopefully this has helped you at least in some context. If you need any more clarification on anything, obviously Discord message me.